Welcome, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and introduce the CEO to do our opening remarks. So, Christopher Fox, the floor is yours.
Anna, thank you all for joining us. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. And we're very excited to be launching this orientation for scientific group and network officers. It's probably long overdue, and it's especially important for those of you who may be new to your positions to understand how the scientific groups and networks work. And I'm also very pleased to see some very familiar faces that know the process very well and can really add to this conversation. So we want to really keep it very much a dialogue. You know, we often say that scientific groups and networks are the backbone of the IADR, and that is certainly very, very true. You know, the organization itself can be somewhat overwhelming, particularly to a young investigator, and they really find their scientific home not within the 10,000 member IADR, but with the scientific groups and networks. So the services that you provide our members is really critical for the organization. And as well as the programming, some of the scientific groups and networks are very adept at doing webinars and engagement throughout the year, so that we're not just a once a year meeting organization, but the scientific groups and networks can really be that thread to engage with our members throughout the year. And finally, and probably most importantly, it's the meeting. The meeting only comes together because of the scientific groups and networks. Hopefully, some of you are getting overwhelmed right now with symposia proposals for our New Orleans meeting, because that deadline is coming up in September. But the work that the scientific groups and networks do with the symposia and the workshop proposals, as well as the group program chairs and the peer reviewers for the individual abstracts, is just incredible. And we're very much, you know, with the exception of the 3 DLS speakers and a couple of keynote speakers that come from the scientific groups and networks again, but our meetings are very much a grassroots bottom-up approach to the meeting. It's really what gets submitted, and it's the scientific groups and networks that really ensure the scientific quality of what comes to our meeting. So with that, just as a general introduction, and a huge thank you to all of you who have made the time for this session for the next hour, as well as those of you who may be viewing this at a later time, I will turn it back over to the experts and turn it back to Rihanna, who will walk through the rest of the agenda. But I'll be here if there's any questions as we go throughout. Thanks, Rihanna.
All right, thanks, Chris. I'm going to open up my slides. So everybody is probably familiar with me because I send you a lot of emails. I'm Rihanna Hayes, a component relations coordinator. I am so glad that you're here. I'm obviously a little nervous because I am never doing public speaking, but I want to say that I have IADR staff who are behind the scenes. They'll be watching the chat. So at the end, we'll have an open forum, but if you have anything you'd like to contribute as we go, feel free. So first, I'm going to send out these slides so you can click through everything, but we have our quick links. So I have a few to share. On the website, you have additional information and tools to assist in governance. We have the Governance Handbook, which is a comprehensive guide to all aspects of your position, including finance, elections, and procedures. The IADR Constitution and bylaws can be cross-referenced to ensure local initiatives are in accordance with the IADR parent body. And then we have the Officer Directory, which can be used to look up people. So we have all of the officer contacts there, so you can collaborate together and find other officers. We have the promotional toolkit, which contains resources to share information about the association with colleagues when attending meetings, hosting events, and presenting. And if you're ever in doubt, we also have the search tool that is in the upper right-hand corner of all the web pages. So when in doubt, you can search. This one is a closer look at the directory page where you can find the officers, as I mentioned, but it also hosts the link to the governance handbook at the top. Then on the right-hand side, these are an accordion with these little plus marks, and then that expands so you can see links to everybody's website and their leadership. And important thing to note is that leadership emails are only visible when you're logged in. So if you don't see them, it's just because you need to log in first, and it's a privacy thing with membership access. And some stats. There are currently 35 scientific groups and networks with our recent 3 editions. So we have many opportunities to learn from each other's success and collaborate. I know some of you have receptions together, but it would also be nice to beef up your annual report so that we have more ideas to share with each other. That's one of my goals, but also maybe virtual events throughout the year because everybody's far apart. There are a lot of opportunities. For the elections, which also lots of contact for me about this, but the elections are held in conjunction with the IADR general election each fall, but it is the responsibility of the group network leadership to seek out potential nominees and encourage them to apply. Each SGN is expected to have the following positions: president, president-elect, vice president, secretary-treasurer, and counselor. You're welcome to create additional positions, but the election or appointment process would occur separately from the general election. And all positions are a 3-year term. So sometimes I get asked if the vice president needs to be reelected, but no, it's only once, and then you move through to president-elect to president. And then I have the link to the page. So there's more information about all of the process on that one, but elections are about to start. So thank you for all your help collecting the nominees this year. We have typical expenses. So examples of typical expenses include award competitions, research days, logistical costs from the business meetings or reception catering. All forms can be found in the governance handbook. And I feel like this page, this is one where I know I get a lot of questions because it's not so obvious. So I added a lot of details, but global headquarters will maintain records and send officers finance updates on a quarterly basis or as requested. Corresponding forms can be found in the governing handbook, and they're completed by one officer, typically the secretary treasurer, and approved via email by a second officer. And it takes 2 weeks for a payment to be processed. So I want to highlight some of the things in my bullets, but it's, yeah, I think that we have our policy for corporate sponsorship, which is very detailed. But my real thing is that I always have to go back to everybody and ask for a second officer to email me. And so when you send something to me, it's easiest if you just copy another officer and then they can reply right away, and then it will be a little bit faster. Our calendar, our year in review. New officers begin their terms at the close of the IADR general session and exhibition each year. And then we also start the nomination cycle for the next nominees. In the second quarter, the nominations close. We did it around June this year. And then also in the second quarter, we request scientific program volunteers, which is separate from, your 5 main officers. And we request that from the president-elect before the meeting, because then those volunteers will be serving when they become president for the following year. So that's the reason why we. A question, or is that just somebody's mic coming undone? Okay, so yeah, scientific volunteers, it's important. Like Chris said, we have to get those on time so that everybody is up to date on their information. In the third quarter, the secretary treasurer will be asked to prepare an annual report describing the past activity and plans for the upcoming year, but it's not their sole responsibility. So ideally everybody works together, but I do send the request to the secretary treasurer around the end of this month. You can expect that email, and then you'll have about a month to complete it. The last one, our next step, we have the general election, which will happen the end of this year, and the whole process starts over again. Opportunities for engagement, 2 things I wanted to highlight. We want to encourage everybody to create webinars to connect people virtually, but it does need to be officially approved. So we have a form that it has to pass through before it can be announced. So make sure you search for that link, but I have it in this slide, and then it's also, yeah, it would be here. And then second one is I want to encourage everybody to make a newsletter. So I created a very simple template, but I also recommend Canva if you want to look through and see. It's a free platform which has lots of templates you can look from and work with. But yeah, you can give a recap, announce award winners, and then just bring attention to upcoming events. And then I can also, if you want to reach out to me, I can share existing newsletters that some scientific group networks already have. We have the community. So the IADR Community is a networking platform designed to foster discussion and connection all year round. There's a general discussion forum, but then each scientific group network has a private discussion board for their specialty. And so I want to highlight with the communities is that it does have a library archive where you can store information. So if you do have a newsletter, it can live there and then be accessed. So sometimes an email will get buried, but it would just stay there so people can find it. And then also when you make a post in the community, it triggers a daily digest, which comes out the next day. So it's another venue for making announcements. And then other thing in the community is we have our member search feature. So it's no longer on our website, it's moved to the community, but you can look up anybody and their contact information, and that now lives in the community. And that's my tiny presentation. So yeah, if you have, I would like to hear from maybe current officers, because that's the real benefit of having you all here is all the veterans. So if I could hear maybe like things that you feel like I missed that you think would be really helpful, that would be wonderful. Then I can incorporate it into my next slideshow. If there's anything.
Maybe explain about the IADR Council and its role and what the officers have to do with that.
Yeah, so we have the 2 councils. So scientific group and networks are technically both AADOCR and IADR. So the AADOCR council, maybe not, I have to check the handbook, but there is one officer that is requested to pick them, and that's not a position that's the whole year. But then the IADR counselor is ideally your elected person, but somebody can stand in. But I think that Denise will be able to tell more about the actual function of council than me.
Sure, I'm happy to say a few words. IADR's council is the overall governing body for the association, and that's why it's so important for each one of the scientific groups and networks to elect each cycle for a 3-year term a counselor that represents the interest of the scientific groups and networks. Those individuals are also responsible for coming back to the scientific groups and networks with any issues arising from the council that would be of interest to the group, anything that would be changing as far as governance or new policies that it would be good for the liaison to the council to be able to share. Each year at the council meeting, the scientific groups and networks are voting counselors as well as representatives from the IADR divisions, and those policies such as the budgets for future years, membership rates, are all items that are discussed and approved by the council annually.
Yeah. Grace.
Yes, here I am. So my question is, and this might be a problem on the Women in Science Network more so than for the other groups, but I was thinking if we could have a yearly schedule for the next cycle so that we know what's coming up, so that, when to name people, when to organize finances, when to have the date for business meeting and stuff like this. Because sometimes we receive requests and those requests some come and we don't have any board meetings scheduled in between. So that generates a lot of emails between the board members. So I don't know if you guys have something like this that you could share with the groups and networks in terms of, to help us, plan ahead so that we can actually, follow the deadlines and not be, keep you guys busy after the deadline sometimes.
Yeah, we definitely have that for scientific program we send out, but yeah, I can work on creating one that's a more detailed year in review.
Brianna, if I may.
Yes.
There's the schedule that Brianna just went through is in the Scientific Group Network handbook, the new governing handbook. So it's there and it's kind of like a high level overview, but also if any of the scientific groups and networks, if a request is coming through, you might not have an executive board meeting scheduled, you can always come to IADR Global Headquarters and we can help with resources as far as like providing a Zoom or things of that nature to get everybody together if it's between like the last time you had a meeting or the last time you saw each other face to face. We can also assist with that.
Thank you.
Courtney, can you also talk about the production schedule for the meeting? Because that has a lot of deadlines important to the groups and networks.
Oh, yes, why, of course. So we are preparing for the 2024 general session in New Orleans. I hope to see everybody there. We have collected from all but 2 groups, the volunteers, the group program chairs, and the session proposal coordinators. That was due at the end of June. And I've started the submission sites are open now. They've been open since July 11th for session proposal submissions and then for abstract submissions. Those volunteers that we've received, the session proposal coordinators, the overall coordinators, and then the symposia hands-on workshop, lunch and learn coordinators have been sent information about the submission deadline for session proposals, which is September 27th, I believe, because Dr. Fox has put me on the spot. But prior to the September 27th deadline, there are other deadlines to make sure that the scientific groups are collaborating with one another, to make sure there's co-sponsorship, to talk to people within your group, for the session proposal coordinators to talk to people within the group, determine what the group wants to do, see how it overlaps with other scientific groups and networks. So those deadlines also need to be paid attention to, but the final deadline for session proposal submission is September 27th. If they would like to be considered for presentation in New Orleans. And then the abstract submission deadline is October 17th. Notifications have gone out to the group program chairs and also the abstract reviewers to confirm their participation and to let people know of the important deadlines. To included in just the welcome and thank you so much for helping putting together the scientific program is the scientific program production schedule. All of the review for this meeting that will take place in March. All of the review for the abstracts is happening in October through November. And then the final notifications will be sent out to any decision. We send decision notifications for those who have been accepted and those who were not accepted into the program will be sent in mid-December. And with the presenter pre-registration deadline occurring in about middle of January, so we can get the scientific program online by February. And before you know it, it is March and we are in New Orleans all together. So that information, a brief overview of that is available on the main meeting website, which is iadr.org/2024 IAGS. I will put that also in the chat. And all of the resources that we have available now are there. And of course, we add information as it becomes available. Registration will be opening in October. So that is that. So, but it's very important to get the volunteers. And I see a lot of people here. I recognize a lot of names for people who have volunteered for me in the past and who are on my volunteer list now. And it is very important for the program to have strong volunteers. And so I thank you and please tell people to come volunteer with me in the future. Thank you. I believe Lori has her hand up, Rihanna.
Yeah.
Hi. I wanted to ask a few questions, and I don't know the best person to target with the questions, but we've been having our different groups meet by Zoom for our business meetings. And my impression is some groups have had fairly good attendance, but a lot of groups have had very small attendance to those business meetings. And in comparison, when we used to meet live, several groups would fill a room full of all the chairs. And I'm disappointed that we're not connecting well with groups that way. So what is the plan going forward? Are we going to be switching back to in-person business meetings sometime soon? And
I can
getting
take
away from Zoom?
I can take that question, Rihanna. So you will be receiving, the scientific groups and networks should be receiving, and I believe it's the president that gets these notifications from the IADR Global Headquarters Meetings Department. They should be getting notifications about placing their business meeting and reception requests to be held in person at the New Orleans meeting. But then there's always the option for there to be other Zoom related meetings around, like not just in New Orleans or not just in person, but those notifications should be going out they should be going out by close of business this week. And then we will make sure that everybody is requesting space to be held in person.
Could I ask one more related question, Courtney? In the past, a lot of us belong to multiple groups, and there seemed to be a lot of overlap that we used to deal with. Has anyone come up with some better ideas to spread out the group meeting times so people that belong to multiple groups are not having to choose which group meeting, business meeting they go to?
Well, there are set times during the scientific program because of the structure of our footprint with the oral sessions and the return of the poster sessions this year. And then the space that we have where the scientific group network business meetings and receptions have to occur on certain days with those space accommodations. However, we encourage the scientific groups and networks, like if there's a clear overlap, or if there is if you're in group A and there's a clear overlap with group B, to make sure that you guys are collaborating, because you can always request joint meeting space at the meeting for both your business meeting and your reception. So that would be something where the officers should collaborate, and I would encourage the officers to continue to have those conversations offline or through email to determine like what's best for the members.
And
Thank you. I had just a quick comment about the scheduling of the business meetings. I know this year and a few times in years past, we have had a conflict with the student award reception that they have. It often coincides at the same time. And many of us have students who are competing in those programs and who are presenting at the meeting, and it's tough to be in two places at one time. I'm wondering if there's any way we could take a look at maybe moving that, or the timing of those receptions, maybe having the student ones start first and then the business meeting start maybe a half an hour later or something.
May I ask a clarifying question, Anne? So are you talking about when they are providing the awards, like they're announcing the award winners, that
right.
portion? Okay.
The National Student Research Group reception that they have.
Okay. I'm going to note that for our meetings department. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I received a chat asking about when I contact officers with their assigned tasks from the handbook, do I also include the presidents? And so what I normally do is I'll send it to the individual first, and then if I don't get a response, I will also send it to the president to follow up with them. So I usually give them a chance first before spamming the presidents with all of the tasks, but yeah, that's what I normally do. And then another thing that I thought of that I didn't include is that, as many of you know, I can send email blasts on your behalf. So I just need to have the message drafted and then a subject line, and then I can enter it into our platform and send it for you. So that is something that maybe the new officers aren't aware. I can help with that. Any more questions? Lori, do you have a follow-up?
I have another question, and
Yeah.
I was just wondering if you have set the date for the council meetings yet, or when you might know when that is, because some of us have to request funds from our institution, and we need to know how many days to come to New Orleans.
The specific times are not set, but I believe tentatively IADR Council will be held on that Tuesday, as it has been in traditional years, and IADR Council on Wednesday morning.
Thanks, Denise.
And the IA Council Tuesday afternoon,
Right,
Okay.
afternoon.
possible to fly in
Thank-
that moment, depending on where you're coming from.
Thank you.
I have a question for the officers. Is there any resource that Rihanna covered today that you were unaware that was offered, that IADR offers for you to be able to connect with your scientific group network community? Like, for example, the community. Is there anything that you didn't know, or everything was you're aware of all of these different benefits and resources that we have? Oh, okay. Well, great.
No, Courtney,
Yes.
I have a question, but I raise my hand for something different.
Okay.
To your question right now, for instance, I don't know, and our group, I think, doesn't know what happens with financial support in terms of newsletter development. You have the template, it's a good thing, but maybe we have additional expenses. Is there any support from IADR?
For the newsletters that we send out, that IADR Global Headquarters will send out on
Yes.
behalf of the groups.
Mhm.
I don't think that there's any financial implication for those. We use the tools that we have built in to send those things out. So there are a variety of tools. You just need to reach out to Rihanna.
To create the newsletters, if we need any graphics or anything else, and we don't have the opportunity. Do you leave it everything to us to create it, and then we send it to you, the PDF? I see Denise
Yes,
agrees
correct.
with her.
Yeah,
Okay.
we don't
Mhm.
necessarily, we don't have in-house designers either.
Okay.
So we
Okay.
are requesting that come back. And I think Rihanna pointed to a really great free resource in the world,
The tool.
Canva, that can help with like basic graphics that you can drop in that are more
Perfect.
exciting.
My other question is in regards to poster sessions. Is it now general agreement that in New Orleans we will have posters?
Yes, that is correct. There will be a poster hall. The posters are coming back. And the board has talked, in the decision to bring the posters back, the board has talked about making sure that those sessions are as engaged and those presenters have as much as engagement as those that are in the oral session rooms, because IADR maintains there's no gradation in the science between the two presentation types. So there is something that will come up, and hopefully when you guys go back to your groups and networks, we do want to make sure that we have strong chairs in both the oral sessions and in the poster hall. So you will be hearing from me a little bit later on in the year about how the group can support both session types.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Dr. Fox?
Yeah, just to add to Giorgio's question, we've had a lot of discussions at the board level, and it's particularly an interest of our IADR president, Ophir Klein, to really make sure that the oral session, we're going back to the traditional oral poster sessions, exactly as it was in 2019 and before, that the quality of the science at the oral sessions is very, very high. If you took the post meeting survey after Bogota, we had a question on the balance of oral sessions versus posters. And we really want to make, and that's really where the group program chairs come in, is making sure that the science in those oral sessions really hangs together. And that's not to say that posters are a lower level of science. That's not the intent. It's just to make sure that when people come into an oral session, they're getting, very high quality science, and it hangs together as a session in terms of the topic. So you'll be getting more on that also. So thanks for that question. Rihanna, Effie has her hand up next, I think.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
wanted to say that to George's point about the graphics, the way that the Women in Science solved this, we recruited teenage kids, our daughters, or our, daughters or sons, whoever. They're so familiar with this. I mean, we did some graphics that my daughter designed a couple of years ago, and they were fantastic. So your problem will be solved with child labor.
So you discriminate the aging now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely, but it's a reality, my friend. It's a reality.
It's true. It is true. Thank you. I have some thoughts as well. Thank you.
Hi there. I just had a quick question. This is Eric Krukonis. So since the posters are coming back when people submit abstracts this fall, will they have a choice for short talk versus poster, or how does that work?
So since we're going back to the original footprint, the interactive talks that you've seen in the past couple of years, those will no longer be a part of the scientific program. When you're submitting, they can select oral, poster, or no preference. And it's their preferred presentation type. It is ultimately the decision of the group program chair, like Dr. Fox talked about with the topics and making sure that things are grouped together nicely, who will determine the final presentation type.
Okay, thanks.
Gladys?
Oh, hi, how are you? So continuation of the posters, it used to be in the big in the previous formats of IADR that a couple of presentations in the poster was they were selected to be orally presented, but it was the next to it was part of his poster presentation. It was orally presented. Is it something you considered this year?
I think you're referring to the poster discussion session types. We will not have a poster discussion session type. It will just be poster or oral. And then I think part of one of these mini conversations about posters, I think it's been pointed out that poster presentations are oral presentations. They do have to present orally what is on their poster. It's just a different format or a different medium to get their science across, but there will not be poster discussion sessions.
Okay, thank you.
Lori?
Just to, again, ask more questions along this line, being involved in some of the programming in the craniofacial group, I know that over the recent years, we had this discussion about having the short poster talks in the discussion section. And it seemed like that was something we were adding because of strong interest from people. So I'm curious, is this being cut out simply because of either space or logistic reasons, or is there really a basis of why we're not going to be trying to pursue those things anymore?
So with the interactive talk strategy, that was in a space where we were making sure that we could do with COVID, we were trying to make sure that we were going to be able to pivot back into a virtual space if we needed to. This is why we had the hybrid meeting in Atlanta and the which they had the interactive talks. However, over the course of these past couple of years, there has been interest about the interactive talks, but there's been more overwhelming call for the poster halls to come back, and then for the oral presentation types to maintain that 15-minute presentation where it's 10 minutes for a discussion, or 10 minutes for a presentation and 5 minutes for a discussion. There were a number of concerns based on the surveys and feedback that we heard about how that 8 to 10 minutes was not enough for somebody to actually get all of their research out or to to have like an effective presentation or to have an effective discussion. And so we were going with the way that the data was coming back to us from the surveys, the post-meeting, the various post-meeting surveys.
Thanks, Courtney.
Next hand is Vijay.
Hi, as regard to the query raised by one of the member before me about the poster and oral, I want to mention to you that some of our institutions where institutions provide support for presentation, they do not provide financial support if you are presenting a poster. They only provide support when you are presenting an oral paper. Therefore, once in 2016, when we were having IADR in London, we requested them, and then they gave us some called as short presentation. It was 3 minutes, 3 minutes short oral presentation. And then later on, I heard that one of the IADR meeting we had 3-minute thesis kind of presentation also. So practically it was poster presentation, but if it was named as oral, some of the people, especially those who are coming from South Asian countries, they got the benefit of that. So I just want to put it across to this group as well, that can we think of some other name, because if we facilitate a few of our people, those who could attend by the financial support of their respective institution or the government.
Can I thank you, Vijay, for that question. And we did have that discussion at the board level also, and we are aware of some institutions that will only provide funding for quote unquote an oral presentation. But that's the tail wagging the dog, to use a US expression. We really need to be putting together the program of the best science. And that's a matter of education of the administrators that are making that ill-informed decision, because as Courtney said, if you're standing at a poster for 45 minutes, you are presenting orally. So we're going to look at some ways that we can brand what a poster presentation is to communicate that better. And we do want to make sure that all the poster presenters have a very interactive experience. And that again comes down to the scientific groups and networks to be making sure that all of the posters assigned to your scheduled in your group or network are seen. And there's various ways that we could do that. And we could use some help from the groups there in terms of, you know, finding the best poster in a session, et cetera, things like that, to make sure everybody has an interaction. But yes, we are aware of that, and we think that we need to do better education of the administrators that are making that determination, because coming to present your poster is as valuable an experience, if not more so, than a 15-minute presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. You have been actually helpful to our people. Thank you.
If I might add maybe some comments related to what you're just talking about. I know when I was serving as group program chair, it was a new experience for me. And a lot of times people do that, and for the first time, they don't understand all the implications. I think having a session like this specifically with the group program chairs and walking them through the software they use and talking about the importance of assigning, especially to posters. I've served as a poster reviewer before, and I've noticed in the halls, you don't necessarily always get the impression that everybody's having somebody come talk to them. So I would almost suggest having 2 poster people assigned, and the group program chairs, if they understand the importance of that, that way, if something happens and one isn't there, for sure we'll have one coming. And if they have 2, that's great. It's a super experience for students, especially to have to talk to multiple people and describe their work. So that would be a suggestion.
That's excellent, Laura. Thank you.
From the floor. Well, seems quiet. Yeah.
Sorry. Courtney, I think I see in the chat what you answered. The Young Investigator Award recipient, my question specifically is, can be an oral or poster or oral presenter. In other words, someone who has a poster presentation can receive an award, or only the oral presenters get the Young Investigator Award.
Well, I am not the awards expert here. I will pose that question and get back to you with our awards, fellowship, and grants coordinator. I believe that it does not matter which presentation type they are assigned, but I will have to get back to you after this because I can't confirm it off the top of my head.
I'm asking for a specific reason, of course. The main reason is because if we know that posters or oral presentations can be in the election for the awards, can be the first days in order to have the award ceremony and not Saturday morning, for instance, or Friday afternoon. You see my point? So this has to be arranged with the group program chair of the individual group.
Right.
So what I would strong abstracts basically there. Mm-hmm.
So what I would say is this: the group program chairs, they are made aware that if they put in scheduling requests, that I will do my best to take them under consideration. But it's typically not around the Young Investigator Awards. I'm not sure if we would even have that information at the time where we are doing the scheduling. But that's something where if there are requests that are placed, if I am able to accommodate them, because I'm not always able to accommodate everything based on trying to balance the science and the space that we have in a brick and mortar building. And then all of the other like religious requests and things like that, then I do take them under consideration, and the group program chair has space to communicate that back to me in the software. So thank you.
Thank you.
Lori.
I did have something to interject related to that for those maybe that are new. I know in groups that I belong to, occasionally what happens is leaders like the counselors will be asked to be judges for competitions, and a lot of the competitions do happen early in the meeting. And so if you're somebody that's going to need to be a voting member of the council, I would suggest that you don't offer your services to judge, because it's really hard. You're splitting your time then trying to judge something and also vote for your group. So for new people, you might want to understand that there is overlap there, unfortunately.
That's a good point, Lori. Thank you.
Closing remarks? Is it time to let everybody continue with their day? It seems like it. But I guess I'll just say again, thank you. I couldn't do all these things without all of you being so supportive and kind all the time. So I appreciate it and all that you do. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
You did a great job, Brianna.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you, Brianna.
Thank you.
You did,
Bye.
Brianna.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.